Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. The Robots Are Coming, episode 2. Today, we had a really special guest, Ben Barlett, who's a council member in Berkeley City Council, District 3. And what's really special about Ben is that he's both a tech and political leader focused not only on activism, but also using innovation to drive 21st century economic development with job opportunities for all Californians.
Yeah, Ben is a very insightful person to interview because, for starters, he contextualized George Floyd's death in a long continuum of economic injustice. But he also proposes many innovative ideas to alleviate this economic injustice. So we discussed his work in this space, including his role on the blockchain commission for calcoin, digital currency to serve as a payment system for the unemployed in California. We discussed him helping integrate workers to work alongside Kiwibot, a food delivery bot, as operators so they don't lose their jobs. We also talked about his drafting of a trade agreement with China to deliver green tech supplies and infrastructure. And we talked about his funding for body cameras on police officers and the new approaches he's advocating for to community policing. And that led to a discussion of privacy, surveillance technology, and data as a property right. Finally, he ends with a very inspiring message for young techies like myself regarding opportunities for innovation, why and how we can use our talent for the public good. So overall, it was an amazing interview, and we hope you enjoy.
So, hello, Ben. This is the podcast, The Robots Are Coming. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ken, and this is Michael.
Yeah, I'm Michael. We're undergrads at Berkeley and Stanford.
Michael?
Yeah, so this is our first episode ever, our first recorded podcast episode ever. So we'll see how it goes.
It's like an inaugural issue.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yes. Yeah. So Ben, could you introduce yourself? We'll get started.
I'm an attorney, and my name is Ben Bartlett. I'm on the Berkeley City Council, and I focus on innovation, opportunity, and inclusion. Been there for almost 4 years and have done some pretty interesting work. Also an attorney where I help other innovators bring their dreams out to the marketplace.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Cool. So you're talking about innovation. Can you address some of the things you've done on Berkeley City Council that have, increased innovation?
Yeah, the core component of the work that we work on and that we strive for to address the structural imbalances and the structural inequities. In order to do that, you have to try new things, and the new things have to be tooled to let more people enjoy the benefits of the new thing, right? So that's innovation, which creates opportunity, and then you include people in the opportunity. So innovation, opportunity, inclusion. And so looking at a problem, here's one example, housing. For too many folks, housing is unaffordable. The rents are too damn high. You can't buy a house. And so we looked at, what are the ways we can make housing not be so priced out of reach for most people. And so we looked at why is it expensive? There's a few different things that came up. But one was the actual building process. The building process of making a home is super expensive. So we dug deep and we found some innovators who are making prefabricated housing. And then going a step further, prefabricated housing that stacks up on each other like a real Lego operation. And then plugging into it, because for this instance, we built for the homeless population because they're on the streets and dying. And their average age now is over 61 years old. So we had to address that. So we plugged in a healthcare center and a homeless services center into the building. So it became it's a new format of healthcare and housing all in one. And as simple as that sounds, that was groundbreaking. They tried to do that in other cities around the country, and they failed because they couldn't weave together the various interest groups that make housing and make them happen. We sat down with interest groups and said, okay, come together and figure out a way to scale this process out so you can make a lot of money instead of, because it streamlines it, right? And
Yeah.
threatens jobs. So then they went ahead and partnered with a big developer and set up a mass manufacturing housing facility, the first of its kind in the country. So that's one we're really proud of. Another one is around, let's see, we had job loss threats due to innovation. So we had this new robot company applying for a license in Berkeley, food delivery system, little robot guy, kind of like Kiwi, but a different company. Remember Kiwi, little robot?
Yeah,
You know?
Kiwibot, yeah.
Yeah. So this was a similar, it was called. And so we said, okay, we'll get you a license to operate on the sidewalks of Berkeley in exchange for you going into the community to young people who are struggling for employment, and you train them to be robot handlers.
Oh, wow.
And then we brought the Teamsters Union to codify that job and make it a Teamster position. And so just like that, we created a new class of worker that's protected in the automation economy. So that was a big one we're excited about.
Yeah,
Healthcare.
I think that's really interesting that you guys really implemented that program that increased the amount of jobs, because with automation you're supposed to see like the decrease of jobs, but I think with more innovation you were able to not only like integrate the community but increase the amount of jobs. And I think that's something that we need to see more as more innovation occurs with other jobs. And yeah, could you continue?
Could you tell us how this robot works and how, like, what role the human would have to play in this?
So in this particular technology they use, you have these robots and they're kind of being monitored. So you have a guy, just like we are, sitting on a laptop with various computer screens with cameras on the robots. So he's watching what they do, making sure they don't hurt anybody, or just a quality control, or even process orders or things like that. And the quality control kind of gets into some higher level work. Then you can start to learn some coding, because what we don't want are these ride share companies, the bike share companies. They come to us. They're like, yeah, we hire in the community, but all they're hiring people to do is pick up scooters left inside the road, put it in a van. Mm-hmm. That's not a future. We want them learning how to do the computer programming and coding and the business management around that. And that's what these jobs are, because they scale up into making the corrections themselves. And then also networking with the businesses that are delivering the robot. So that we like that.
So I assume like the human would be monitoring, serve as sort of an operator, and then if like the robot runs into something, they might like log it down, and then later on like retrain the model with these updated labels.
Right. And this may be something that they automate themselves out of a job at some point. So that's why definitely always pushing the envelope to do more than just that particular job.
Mm-hmm. And in the long term, what do you see? Because obviously, like to do this job, it requires some coding skills, some basic computer understanding. But as many have pointed out, like the ratio of operators to robots will decrease in the long term. Like even the role of labeling the data and serving as like a due diligence will also be automated in the long term. So how do you see? What do you see the future? How do you see the future will look like once those parts of the job will be automated too?
I mean, the parts that humans are best at, being creative, being relationship, and being human. So I'm not sure what that looks like. Maybe that's, like I said, networking with the businesses, getting accounts. I'm not sure, but I know that I go back and forth on this. But when the elevator was introduced, the elevator operator, the automatic elevator, you push the button. The elevators union and elevator operators went insane, and it was going to herald the end of all these jobs. And instead, they flourished, of course, right? More efficient movement, people in buildings. So I think that the human ingenuity and human capacity for industry is limitless, and this will free us up to do new things. And I suspect we're going to have elements of automation working for us the way we have screwdrivers working for us.
I see.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to maybe some of the policy proposals in terms of alleviating people out of poverty. We're curious on how do you think, like, what do you see as the boundary at which the government and the public sector and the private sector should work in terms of providing solutions to poverty? What does the public sector do best, and how does that deviate?
I mean, innovation is for the people. And so government can encourage best practices, and government can definitely provide a safety net so that there doesn't have to be such extreme poverty. And government is derelict in its duty when it does allow this kind of poverty. And that's why you see people in all 50 states and 145 cities hiding and burning, because government is not doing its job. Private industry, on the other hand, has its own job. But when you take on federal charter and become a federal corporation, that means you're inured to the public benefit, and that's been lost along the way. So that's why you have this disconnect between the stock market and wages. It's kind of nonsensical, or boggles the mind rather, that the stock market can be going through, but people are hungry in the street. So that's basically government allowing corporations to run amok. They need guardrails, or they need to be taxed heavily and let the government just take care of all the people and let companies just innovate. But as it is right now, when they innovate just for their little captive market and their extractive economy, they end up killing themselves in the long run. Because right now we're headed on three fronts: total destruction of the environment, turning acidic. The next 40 years is supposed to bring half the world's population to not having water, right? Also leads to a lack of market because people have no money. We're also on track to have the average American have a zero net worth in the next 40 years. And that might be accelerated, by the way, because of the coronavirus pandemic collapse.
Right.
And third, you see evidence of right now, if you look at the news, is the complete no confidence in these corporate institutions. They're smashing windows in these places, right? So that kind of short-sighted business activity is ultimately hurtful in the long run. And so I think sustainability and resilience are going to have to take on larger definitions in the near future.
Do you think that, because like this short-sighted versus long-sighted is one of the major issues we see going on today, where companies will maximize short-term profit margins over long-term innovation, and neglecting very basic sort of common sense and things like a mother should be worth something, or every human has value. Instead, everyone sort of becomes this number in a giant economic machine. So do you think really the issue, does it lie in the corporation structure itself, like the way shareholders sit on the board and like the workers don't have any say? Or do you think it's more on the government side for not providing like that safety net to begin with, or not regulating enough?
Well, it's a bit of both, right? The governments allow corporate charters to the corporation duty to its shareholders, not to the population at large or its customers, even, right? Also, it allows perverse incentive or moral hazard for pay. They can executive pay tied to stockments leads to just vampiristic activity to pump it up and bounce, right? And it's just all, that's destructive. And government, the last 40 years, the Reagan Revolution has been retracting the social safety net, and and you see the result. We have affordable housing crisis and homelessness in every single county in the country. And it's important to remember all of this is happening in the context of your generation being the biggest one in human history. There's more youth than the baby boomers, which is the other biggest group. And so all of the goods and resources have already been parceled out to that generation. And so, like for instance, they went to school for like $5,000. They got their first rent was $180. Their house cost them $25,000. They got the good healthcare system. They had lakes and water and land and clean air. Cars cost $3,500. They got everything when the getting was good. Now, your generation is unable to afford rent, unable to buy a house, even with a good job. You have to be in a certain circuit to earn enough money to live right, which is difficult. You guys go to the best schools in the world, but your countrymen are having a tough time, right? And then you have the healthcare cost being the biggest source of bankruptcy in the country. And you have the fact that your kids may have acidic oceans, right? So your generation is butting up against the older generation who's holding down all the resources. They won't let you build apartment buildings in their neighborhoods. There's a housing shortage, right?
Yeah.
They're squeezing you. And so the government has a duty to make sure you guys can get in the game and resources get shared. And corporations and business are all part of it as well, right? So yeah, it's a complicated mixture, but we can do some simple tweaks to at least just provide the basic amenities for people.
Yeah, we definitely, I think, have that sense of what's going on, especially the younger generation. Even like just from a representation standpoint, like we vote. I'm not sure what the percentages are, but like the participation rate is dropping every year. And this election cycle, there was a lot of excitement around Bernie Sanders, but and for us like Andrew Yang, but in the end, people didn't show up. The kids didn't show up, and now we're sort of left with boomers and only boomers in the race. So yeah,
it's a shame, right? Everyone in the race was over 90. So Andrew was the man. He was great. He was thinking great ideas. He's incredible. I met him a couple of years ago here in San Francisco. Really amazing person. Really cool. I think he's definitely ahead of the curve, and he would have been really good up there on the stage right now.
When do you think? So obviously, like a lot has changed since Yang dropped out. Right now, the nation is sort of, everyone talks about electability as the most important thing, and they just want to stick with Joe Biden, try to repair the country, and unwind all the damage that's been done. And then maybe in the future we'll see like, people might be more receptive to candidates like Andrew Yang or other outsider candidates. But what do you think is like the timeline before people could really look into people like Andrew, especially, and also embrace the younger generation's voice as well?
Well, so the younger generation has to vote more, but they never do. It's not new. It's not a new thing. People just don't. It's more the homeowners vote. Homeowners have a stake in their community. They're much more responsible because they got to deal with all this stuff, insurance and taxes and all that. So and they have kids, right, in school systems, and it's important how you vote. So it's tough to get young people to vote. It's very rare that they do. So that's just to be honest, right? That's going to be a point of education because they did not turn out this time, despite all the hoopla. that says a lot. But outsiders, the door is open for them. Like, Andrew could have away. He didn't, but he could have, because Trump is an outsider. He came and barnstormed the Republican Party in the country, and so after Barack being a black person, the outsider is allowable. So he opened the doors, and then next came Trump, and so the next one could be an outsider too. This current election, had a different dynamic because of the kind of panic mode people were in, and Biden representing something comfortable that they knew. The last 8 years, Barack, it's hard to argue with that because it just represents that good vibe that people had for a decade. But it could have been Andrew. It could have been, and the next time it can be someone else like that. The doors are definitely open for outsider candidates if they can galvanize folks and get money. And
Yes.
dropped out.
But like, especially having followed Yang for so long, like we still do think there are certain obstacles that Yang faces that's sort of unique to his status. Like with the Yang media blackout and everything, like all the graphics in which his name wasn't even spelled correctly. Like maybe, like I'm not sure. Like with Donald Trump, he is an outsider, but he sort of had all those private interests working for him, and he sort of really took advantage of a lot of things at the right time when the country was going through a really hard time. So, for Yang, he's sort of, in a way, he's an outsider, but he's also like opposite of Donald Trump. Like, do you think Yang has a chance in the future, and what should he do to run for president again?
Well, he's more famous now, right? Remember, Trump was already famous. TV show, he's been famous my whole life, right? So that's a big advantage. He's already famous and he's already rich. He didn't need to beg for money, he was able to just, he talked, and he had political relationships because he was a donor to the guys he was running against, right? So he was a special case. But Andrew will be famous next time. He could have a better shot. It's tough. I mean, everyone who gets to the top of the presidency is just a mastermind. They all are. It's like the top. It's the best of the best of the best, and it's easy. It's not easy. And Andrew, he, a lot of times people felt that he wasn't connecting with them emotionally, which is the most important thing. More important than the ideas, right? It's the emotional part. And so he had a good message and he was doing good stuff, but he had to really connect with people in a deeper way. And that's hard because, these guys are not technocrats. Politicians have to be emotional. That's the most important thing. All the ideas come afterwards. They're never elected by ideas. Mary Barack didn't have any ideas. It said hope and change. He was the idea, right? Trump, make America great again. Just resurgence of white people feeling good, basically. So, Andrew could have great success if he kind of retooled his dynamic and got to the core or symbolic feelings that people feel.
That definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For this podcast in particular, our viewers are all like technocrats and they're very interested in technology. So they definitely like that aspect of Andrew Yang, and then now all the new conversation that's coming into politics around his policies. We're curious what you think out of all of Andrew Yang's policies, like which one do you think has the best shot in the near future to be passed?
Oh, well, I mean, so now, sure. Well, now we have the economic collapse. So he's right on point with his UBI sort of format. I think, in a sense, the stimulus, the recovery checks are maybe a start, but we're going to need to rebuild the country. All these are, destroyed. everyone's out of work, no one can go to offices anymore. So the rebuilding of the country is something that will necessitate a basic income. Whether that's tied to you contributing, you doing something, or whether it's just passive, I think that'll be worked out. But I think he was definitely ahead of his time on that. He saw it coming, and I think we can expect it in the near future.
Yeah, and speaking about universal basic income and aiding the economic collapse, how much of a factor do you think the economic collapse played a role in George Floyd's death? I think like how much of the systematic problems in our society right now led to that, and the subsequent events of movements across the country. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, look at what they killed him for. They accused him of passing a fake $20 bill. That says it all right there. There's no money to the people, so people make their own money. And the police says no one's home except for people on the front lines and poor people that are packed in apartments and can't be in there all day. The police are paying extra attention to people of color, people like him. So the economic deprivation caused him, allegedly, to take extra matters to feed his fucking family. And then the police focused on him because he's there and no one else is there. And, and add that in their normal predisposition to attack black men. That was it. And that's happening all over the place.
Yeah, I think it's
fun. It is a core reason why it happened.
I think it's so symbolic that it was like a $20 fake bill. Like,
yeah.
The government prints a lot of cash and they bail out all the big corporations with all their stimulus package. But when it comes to, people living in poverty, like even a $20 counterfeit bill could, cost.
Exactly. And that's why one of the things I worked on, I'm very proud of, are the blockchain-based bonds, because they're meant to create a public crypto currency. And I've just authored a number of measures that I'm submitting to the state of California to create what we call a calcoin, a state crypto coin for public benefits and low-income persons and aid dispersal. It's very similar to New York's public Venmo.
Well, that's really interesting. I think a lot of our viewers are interested in blockchain. Could you tell us a bit more about this calcoin and what stage it's in?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work in blockchain, represent blockchain companies, and in Berkeley, I work some people and help create the first blockchain municipal bond, tokenizing bonds. And that's meant to make them low cost and more affordable for ordinary people, and to target them for local projects. So that George Floyd, he may be low income, but he can own a piece of a bridge and collect toll revenue, right? These are the only rich people can own pieces of. But now, with the blockchain technology, you can note ownership down to the millimeter and automate payments from it and everything else. It's incredible. So that's meant to really spread ownership of income earning entities into the hands of the people. That's what the purpose was. So in the state of California, I was blessed to be appointed by the governor to a task force to work on blockchain proposals for California. And California, of course, being fourth largest economy now, maybe fifth, I forget, and a home of innovators like you guys, but not really having a standard to embrace it. So we came up with a number of proposals, one of which is I call calcoin, and is essentially just a digital dispersal of benefits and payments for people, for the unbanked. And California has a couple of million unbanked and underbanked. But that number is going to grow, of course, now that we're in a depression. And so having the unbanked have resources in a decentralized financial entity, a DeFi entity, where they can receive and send benefits and payment and be invested in public projects too. That's the next level. I think that's a future beneficial economy that the technology can help implement.
Yeah, and I think it's so timely because with this round of stimulus checks, a lot of people who didn't have bank accounts had to see their payments delayed, and people who didn't file taxes in the last year, etc. So having this decentralized payment system would definitely be a huge blessing.
Oh yeah, and they spend a lot of money when they cash it at the credit union. They get off there. So this is rapid and more streamlined.
So obviously with blockchain, we think of something that sort of exists outside the control of the government, that's completely decentralized. But in this case, if a person earns some money for collecting a fee at a toll booth, it'll still be sort of overseen by government at some level. So how do you think, what do you think are the next steps for these developers to work together with government in order to make this a reality?
Yeah, I think government's gonna put a lot of money on the table and just partner with people to roll out different proposals and different projects. I mean, it's what they do now on I guess a smaller scale, but still a very big scale right now. I mean, the Pentagon works with developers all day long, and so now you're going to see just a larger scale version of government partnership with developers and everyone else, because as we digitize everything, that's it. That's the space.
So how excited are you in the years ahead on innovation in this space?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think finally, they say necessity is the mother of invention. And so we finally have the confluence of a social, economic, and environmental crisis that no one can ignore now. We've been talking about it for years. And now no one can ignore it. So we have that. Then we also have, for the first time, the presence of an abundance of tools, of so many smart people with access to information and the ability to communicate and create, and they're connected around the world. We've never had this before in a point of crisis. So, we're able. I'm excited to see the necessity kick in and have people just generate the solutions we need. And I got to tell you, I've been trying to get young people to focus their talents on developing computer things besides advertising. Right, it's all going to advertising, one form or another, and use your talents toward saving the world. And so I think this is a moment where people will be moving into leveraging their genius for true and lasting benefit.
I think you definitely hit the right point on that. Especially from Berkeley and Stanford, we see the fellow students are a lot more interested right now in working for big tech companies. They'll take all their talents, study something like AI, machine learning, and earn really good salaries at Google or Facebook. But when it comes to innovation, for the public good, there's still that sort of gap of incentives that we have to align. So do you think that's something that could be done? And what sort of what are you working on in order to make the incentives of all those talented people align with the public social good?
Well, it's the financial incentives ultimately is the main incentive that always works, right? Just growing the pie. if you have this many people unable to spend money on your platform, either your Google AdWords or your Facebook ads, if the customer has no money because they're too poor or they're landless and homeless due to environmental catastrophe, if you help them get money, you have more money. This is the real simple, fundamental nature of economic growth that we've walked away from. So really designing inclusive markets and is great. And I think that goes a long way. And then it's going to happen naturally. The incentives that I can make, I can't make people be good, right? But I can make them think about how to have a more sustainable career and earn more overall by opening new markets. And I can make people aware of they're going to become aware anyway of the losing proposition to focus on stuff when every city in the country is burning. Mm-hmm. I think the choice has become clear to people on its own.
So you're saying that at this stage, we've really hit the lowest of the lowest we could go, and then from here on out, like even the rich people will realize that it's very for them that we provide like these public benefits, and so people could go back into the economy and start working and consuming, and those incentives would align in the right direction.
Right, and that's exactly, and that's so natural. That's the natural thing. The story about Henry Ford paid his workers enough so they could buy his cars. Right? To maxim, we all know it's just humans are. My father used to say, humans are not long out of the trees. They're by nature somewhat self-destructive and short-sighted. And so it's an evolutionary process for us to keep expanding our worldview and understanding the ramifications. Even thinking beyond your generation. That's extraordinarily difficult for folks. That's why they don't mind dumping toxic stuff in the lake.
Exactly.
It's a process. It's a moral and ethical evolution that we've been on for a couple of thousand years. And I'm heartened by the fact that the human murder rate is the lowest it's ever been in history. The very first document in the world was a slave transcript back in Samaria, and now slavery is illegal in every country on earth. Mm-hmm. Right? You have for the first time global charity. It's unprecedented for one tribe to donate stuff to another tribe that they don't know. Right? We do that every which direction. So we are evolving, and we are becoming a more perfect species. These are just moments of evolution.
Yeah, and I think especially in terms of uniting people together for public good, like there's no better example than the space of green energy and the fight against climate change. And Ken and I, we did some research on some of your work on that front, specifically your Asia Pacific Clean Air Partnership, and also like your plan to put workers back into the workforce to build a green energy project. So could you tell us what you have been working on that front lately?
Yeah, so the clean energy front, that's my heart. That's where I really came up. I worked on cap and trade and worked on electric vehicle. Got a blender in the background. Worked on electric vehicle infrastructure, and trying to work out the market evolution of that world, and the trade agreement with China that we conceived of and drafted got signed by the government, both governments. It's like $500 million of deals in 6 weeks. The Pacific Clean Air Partnership, that was amazing. Huge. They bought EV charging equipment. We bought air sensor equipment, things like that. It was really amazing, and it opened up my mind as to what a noble economy can do. And you see Elon Musk, the guy's going to be the richest man in the world as soon as test its next milestone, and he's doing electric vehicles, right? So yeah, so lately in that front, I guess the only thing I'm really doing that corresponds is working on blockchain enabled electrical transactions. So selling electricity more easily and more democratically. So that's my main thing now. And then on the political front, in government in Berkeley, working on a green deal. We're going to take what will look like a 21st century upgrade of Berkeley to be all clean energy and electric vehicle infrastructure and housing retrofits, things like that. A Berkeley Green Deal. That's what we're launching in the next 4 years.
And do you think what the Berkeley Green New Deal could potentially be extended to other cities? Like, is Berkeley a pioneer in this front?
We're first movers a lot of times. We have a lot of resources and we're small, and we get a lot of attention. So I definitely think that we could create a template that other cities in the country could follow. And I expect it, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Berkeley is
That's really powerful.
a really progressive city. Yeah. And a lot of the laws passed in Berkeley eventually, is a forefront of a lot of other progressive movements around the country. So yeah, Berkeley at a local level plays a really important role in setting the tone for, progressive movement and yeah. So, and another question I had was, I know you, Ben, you increased the funding for, a lot of body cameras for Berkeley. Could you talk about, that initiative and how you see that initiative can, be implemented around the country for a lot of other, police stations?
Yeah, so it's funny. Berkeley is, I'm pretty sure it's the first city to have a civilian oversight of its police department. It's called the Police Review Commission, and we created it almost 50 years ago. And since then, we've seen such a dramatic decline in our police involved shootings that we haven't even had an officer shooting in many years. And we have crime. We have hella crime, and we have homeless people. We got wild stuff going on, but our police are trained in de-escalation, and for the most part, are doing their best to get it right. So the body cameras, once that technology came out, and we said, okay, let's do it. We had an unfortunate death of a person in custody, and I know that definitely was part of our calculus to get it going. So we had a long series of meetings on the Police Review Commission, which I served on before I was in City Council, working out the policies and parameters of body cameras, and then we passed it, and then it kind of languished. They're resistant, right? They're always resistant to more layers of oversight. It's just they are, right? And so, but they worked with it. But after a lot of delay, we were able to locate the funding for it and pass it, and now they wear them, which is great. And so we'll review the policy soon and see what we're able to do in terms of perfecting policy. Because you see it on TV now, right? They turn the cameras off, right? So we need to study that and make sure we don't have that problem.
Interesting.
But kids could learn from our example for sure. I talk to my friends around the country. They say stuff like, there needs to be some kind of civilian oversight. I'm like, yeah, we have that, right? Yeah. So some of these models that we've done in this regard can be exported and should be.
So in terms of the parameters you've had to tune since the version 1 of these body cameras, like, what do you think are the sort of lessons that you've learned in terms of how you design these cameras, how do you deploy them, could be carried to the rest of the country?
Yeah. I need to do a study of how they're working because it's relatively new. I need to review the study of them before I comment. Um, you know, I think they're working, right? I think I think in general, body camera systems might benefit from blockchain to allow a hashing of each scene and each person, so you can find it quickly and it can't get lost, and you can use it. I think that's important. But now you have also this other element that no one thought of. Well, people thought of it, but it's kind of more pressing now. Is the when the camera is used to indiscriminately capture your face,
Mm-hmm.
even when you're not being arrested or not, under suspicion. Uh, Now all of a sudden, the state has your facial identity
Mm-hmm.
and your whereabouts. So that's a new thing. There's a privacy element at play now, which we got to really start to think about. Berkeley has a privacy policy beyond Californians, and so it's something we need to look at because, again, privacy wouldn't be a big deal if we could trust those who have our data. But you saw with the Cambridge Analytica and the lack of transparency about what your data is being used for from social media platforms, and how they're using it for psychological manipulation, which is weird, right? And also you have the state, which, out there killing people. So there's not a lot of trust to allow these guys to have your data.
Yeah, speaking of this, I actually had a question. So I read this book in high school called The Weapons of Math Destruction. It's
MATH?
excuse me,
MATH destruction? Math or mass?
math. So it's a play on the mass.
Okay.
And it was written by a Harvard PhD in math. And she talks about all the uses of algorithms having unintended consequences and perpetuating racism and discrimination. Like she uses examples of how the police will use zip codes in their algorithms, or how when you ask for a loan, they'll try to use your credit history as a proxy to like how responsible you are, and or how like of the wrong uses of math and algorithm. So there's a lot of examples she gave. Do you see that as a problem in Berkeley as well?
Everywhere for sure. My friend actually is one of the top equity persons operating in AI and algorithms, and her job is to go out and undo the racist and biased programming that biased people put into the algorithms. That's a huge problem. It's huge. This is going to be the next thing that pisses everybody off, without a doubt. It causes people to not get access to resources unfairly, right? And a worry that we're moving towards a Chinese-style social credit prison, right?
Mhm.
And this would be the same thing. So that's a point of resistance, without a doubt. And these people outside right now, as we speak, they're not gonna support biased AI algorithmic prison for the resource needs.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns the author did raise is that so some of these big data companies, they essentially give you a score when you testify in court. So, and it's computed from a lot of potentially biased factors like your zip code, your past history, everything like that, and that score sort of automates the whole process of you being able to even defend yourself.
Yeah.
So like if say if the uh, if the if in court like they say we're ruling you in prison because your family and friends were in prison, like that's obviously gonna spark outrage. But
Yeah.
because everything is done with algorithms now, there's no opportunity for people to even express rage or expose like the unfairness behind this system. So it might not be like a George Floyd style of incident where everyone can use that as sort of as a catalyst for change. So how do you think, like, for those issues in particular regarding data and algorithms, people can seek reform, and how would it go about
Right.
different?
Well, there are more and more people learning about it. Right. There's a great documentary out. I just saw. I forget what it's called, but there's a lot more. It's called The Surveillance Economy.
Mm.
Great documentary. So as more people know about it, that's the thing. I told you the person I know who is out there correcting this stuff is works at a very large company and is head of a whole army of people. And she's an activist too. So it's get the word out, let people know about it, so they can undo it. Because it's part of the same system of down pressureness, down pression, you know? It's a song, Down Pressure Man. This knee and neck stuff, it's all the same thing. It's part of this knee in the neck on the people. And, you know, as people highlight, as we highlight it, we will correct it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you think in the long run that as more people start caring about data and privacy, this is something like Yang also really champion, like data as a property right, that
Yeah.
people will start seeking change as they learn what actually goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, I wrote a paper on that too. How you can, if you own your own data, you can monetize it and you can earn passive income just in the use of your data.
All right.
You can have your AI participating in your, and you can even group up as a group or community, dispersed or in the same area, and pool your data payments and securitize them and have a large investment money.
Mm-hmm.
The mortgage-backed securities work, and then start to really make changes in the community together. So absolutely, we just have to. There's a legal fix in there to require to essentially require people to check with the owner of the data before they sell it. A tweak like that would allow basic income, $200 a month. That was 2 years ago. They were saying $200 a month, the average digitized American could earn.
And do you think
Yes.
at a local level, we could implement some sort of policy that we could regulate data and make it, you know, some sort of as a property, right? Do you see like Berkeley doing that in the future?
That'd be awesome, but the Federal Telecommunications Act and stuff like that gets in the way. These federal laws, but you know, if I could think of a way to do it on local level, I would, because that's exactly where it's at.
Right.
Yeah.
Property right and data.
I think it ties into like what you were saying about whose hands the data get in. Like if they fall into corporate interest, they're always like they're sort of used for the wrong incentives. They're monetized, and then people get treated like the data get treated like commodities
Exactly.
or profiteering. So do you think
Exactly.
be like this need to really change the premise behind data, like seeing it as our property, something that should be protected by like a Bill of Rights, as opposed to a source of profit. So it seems like, do you think that will be something that will start from the local level, or something that have to start from the government level?
It has to be demanded on the local level, but the federal laws are in the way. So, or people just do it privately. You know, like the Brave browser, the Brave web browser, that protects your data. I think we're going to see personal data markets pop up, and they'll do it outside the federal law. I think that'll happen before the federal law is changed. So I'm always looking for people in the personal data market business. I think that's a great opportunity for young guys to get into because people need passive income, and they also want to own their data. So if you make a deal with them to pay them for their data, right, then they can have passive income and control of what they release too.
So you think like for talented like software people like us, we can build our own data markets outside of the federal government completely, and it'll be something that can spark a lot of interest in young people.
That's the move. You know, if you can tie it to payments for the use of your data, get paid to go online, right? Get paid to use this cell phone. $200 a month just to use this phone, right? Or plug in this adapter or this app into your phone and your laptop and get a check every month. That's what we're talking about. And then, of course, getting creative with what you do with groups of people and their checks every month, right? So it could be the new mortgage-backed securities. I'm a big believer in this personal data market evolutions. I talk about this a little bit in my little Smart Path paper, the Smart Path blockchain investment thesis. Yeah, personal data markets. That's a big one. It involves AI too, because you know that when you open your computer and you see the banner for an advertisement, in that split second before you see it, there's an auction for your attention. 20 different companies are saying, okay, I got a young guy, lives in California. Do I got 1 cent? Do I got 2 cents? Do I got 1 cent? Sold to Chuck E. Cheese or whatever for 2.5 cents. So your AI bot can do that auction or be there in the auction and take a tax right at that moment for you. So you just made, 3/4 of a cent when that banner popped up.
Yeah.
Or whatever amount of money you're talking about, but something small like that, adding up over all the uses of your data down the line too. Even when they bundle your unusable data, or even bundle your excess data and extract psychological stuff from it, you get paid for that too down the line, if you even allow that.
Yes. So regarding this, a very funny story is I've been using Brave for about a month by now.
Oh, cool.
But so on the browser, it says I've earned 1.33 USD this month for the ad that we use. But I have to admit, like, I still catch myself like using Chrome more often.
Yeah, me too.
So even though like there's a lot of innovation in this space, and like I've seen the Brave team, like they have like AI people on their team as well. So like,
wow.
And they have a series of research papers outlining like the work they've done, and it's really exciting. But in terms like just from my experience, like it's still very tantalizing to use like Chrome and Safari and all these things, just because of like cookies and caching and everything they have in place.
And everything's all synced up. But if Brave paid you $200, I bet you'd be using it. It's there. It's there for someone to figure out.
Yeah, I would definitely use it if it was like $100 this month rather than $1.
Me too. Hey guys, I got a 2:00 work call coming in.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed this talk. You guys are great.
This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you. And Ken and Michael, I'm honored to have been your first guest, and looking forward to it. And you guys stay positive and apply your genius to help correct the situation outside. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. All right.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. Bye, Ben. Thank you so much.